Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Beyond the Pod. I'm Brandon Mileski, Pat Micheletti with me as always, and it's brought to you by SodaStick.com. Hi, Patrick.
Hello, Brandon.
We're coming down the stretch. It's about to get interesting. We had Nate Miller from Beyond the Pond back in the day join us, kind of reunited, a reunion a while ago, and we said, we got to have you back on so we can make it like an old Beyond the Pond show where we do quick shifts and stick tap and all that kind of stuff. So, former Golden Gopher, former actor in the movie Miracle, Nate Miller is our guest now. Hello, Nathan.
Hey, guys. I even got my Soda Stick hat on as a shameless sponsor plug, and I saw their Wildflower shirt, so this is my plea to, get into that, their latest offering.
Yeah.
How's Hollywood treat you?
I'm a long way from Hollywood, Mick. Long way from Hollywood.
Nate, the last time we talked to you was a while ago. What were you expecting from the Wild leading up to what just happened? Hold on. I had issues with my computer for a second. I apologize. Sorry about that. Let's rewind. Going up to the trade deadline, what were your expectations for the Wild? What did you want them to do? And did they fill all the needs you wanted? Or did you think, maybe this team shouldn't have gone that far?
Well, I was trying to think about this last night, and when we talked last, everything that was pre-slump, right? And everything was going great. And it was almost like embarrassment of riches. Like, sure, we could add something, but we don't really need to. And then things went south, and it got to a point where almost borderline, are they going to be buyers or sellers? It felt like there for a little bit. I think they did pretty well. I mean, they certainly. What really affected me is that Calgary, they play Calgary back-to-back or twice a week there.
Yes.
And it might have been, Calgary at their very best and the Wild at their bottom. So maybe I'm a little bit skewed in my thinking here. But I thought that did expose them for just being a little soft and easy to play against. And that was my takeaway. And I think it was clear at that time, the way their defense especially was set up is that they were going to be pretty easy to play against in the playoffs, against some of those bigger, heavier teams. And at that point, I thought, you can play that way if you have enough skill and you have great goaltending. They weren't getting great goaltending. There's a pretty skilled defense unit, 1 through 6. I mean, 5 and 6 gets a little different, but the guys playing the vast majority of the minutes have the skill. They don't have the physicality possibly needed, especially in a long series, especially against a team like Calgary. And then I thought they addressed those two things. They got a little bit tougher and heavier and harder to play against. And they have theoretically not just a world-class goaltender, maybe not in the prime of his career, but a guy that I think is still, viable to say the least. And maybe.
Go ahead, Pat. We're having some connection issues. What do you think of the trades they made?
Well, here's the deal, Brandon. I always thought that they were going to pull out of it because I thought, I think that they were too talented, especially up front. But I also thought that they weren't going to advance or have the ability to advance far if they didn't make some moves. So I think it was twofold. I don't think it was a panic move to make the deals they made because they were playing poorly. I think they kind of go hand in hand a little bit. I just felt like they're too good up front, and they're going to find their game again. We saw how good they were at their best, and we saw them at their worst. And so somewhere in the middle, they were going to be. But to take that next step, they needed to make the moves they did.
Nate, you were talking about Marc-Andre Fleury at the time we lost you.
Okay, I thought my analysis was so bad you just cut me off and said we don't need him. No, I was just saying you get a guy like that who's been through it all. That's going to add valuable experience. Yeah, he's not 27, but he's still, as far as the eye test goes, he passes that. And maybe in a way it creates it does motivate a guy like Cam Ward. It sounds crazy that experienced NHL players need motivation, and maybe that's not the exact right term, but maybe just says like, okay, this team's serious. They brought in an option. I better step it up a little bit. And, he played obviously very well, I think, the last few games. So it could have been a win-win in that case. Obviously, I would assume if you make a move like that, they're going to plan to ride Fleury. But you need to have two goalies. You see it all the time in these situations. So I thought they were good moves, and I don't think they gave up a ton. I guess the Capo Kakkonen thing time will tell if that was a move. But I think in the goaltender position, it's so hard to speculate on that or figure out what is your long-term solution at that position.
I've always said that sometimes your goaltending is a product of your defending, and Talbot was not playing either of them. They both were in a slump, but the whole team was in a slump. And last night, I think Brodin blocked 7 shots. Okay, so he's blocking 7 shots, and those aren't getting to the net, and that's helping your goaltender. So it's kind of, it's tricky. We always just go right to the goaltender, but the guys in front of them have to do their job too. Now, I'm not making an excuse for Talbot, but I think there's always a little bit of that we got to think of too.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're right, Pat. Like Cam has looked better the last 6-7 games, but defensively they've looked better in front of him. They haven't given up a ton, but when he's had to make a big save, he has been making those big saves. But I also think defensively you play a little bit better and a little bit more confidently when the guy behind you is not giving up 40-foot goals,
right,
not screened, right? And it changes it changes mentally, psychologically the way you're playing out on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I'm sure there's an advanced metric analysis, analytics that would maybe define this, but I just think it is really a hard position to evaluate because there's so much that goes into it. Obviously, at a lower level, you can tell, but at the NHL level, there's so much going on, and I just think it's a really tough position to know for sure, who you can rely on and who you can't. I mean, look at the Wild's greatest run in history, and that was obviously a team set up for defense. But Dwayne Rolston was in the minors a few years before that, and Manny Fernandez was kind of a castaway too. So, I mean, those are guys, right? When they ran, I mean, that's almost 20 years ago now, which is crazy. So I think it is really tricky, and it's not like, oh, just go get anyone and throw them in there. But when you get a chance to add a guy, like Fleury, I think it's a really good move for what they gave up. I think we're all comfortable with if they make it to the conference final, if it's a late first rounder, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that seems very palatable. I was hesitant to say give him a first rounder, but with those conditions, I think that's a move you make every time.
Well, and they also got a second rounder for McBain. They're going to get a second rounder when Johansson, they end up not signing him, so they're going to have 2 seconds anyways. And let's face it, the prospect pool, you never know until they get to the NHL. But from all accounts, they have one of the top 3, top 5 prospect organizations in the entire league right now. So you're kind of in a situation where you have a chance to win now. Let's face it, I'll get your guys' opinion here in a second, but obviously Colorado is kind of on top of the mountain, and Calgary's look pretty good. But overall, like 1 through 8, I don't think it's a very scary Western Conference. I think the East is much better all the way 1 through 8, where so there kind of is a little bit of a window here to make a run.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I am still scared of Calgary and Colorado. And again, I caught Calgary. I guess we all did at such a time where you're like, I don't want to overrate that in my mind, but I'm having a hard time not. And even, we'll get to it, but they keep popping in my head as a team to watch out for the Stanley Cup.
It's because you like Daryl Sutter.
Well, yeah. It is amazing. I almost forget that guy's still coaching. I look at oh, there he is. And he gets something. I don't think he's a joy to play for, but he certainly gets something out of his teams. That's for sure.
It's almost like he gets there are small stretches where he can coach where your team is going to be one of the toughest teams to play against. That over a long term, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I don't know if that style works. Almost kind of probably like Torchetti.
Yep.
Did I just say no? Tortorella. I'm sorry. I confused him.
Combine an ex-Wild coach.
Confuse him with the Minnesota Wild. But it's almost like Sutter. When he has the right elements working the way he wants it to work, that team can be scary for that year.
Yep. But yeah, I think, as far as making that move and what they gave up in their prospect pool, I agree with everything they did. Again, Kakkonen's the one I'll put a little bit of a asterisk on for now, but that was a need, the guy they got. And I'd be lying if I said I watched a ton of San Jose Sharks games this year, but everything I've heard about him fits the bill for what they needed.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is a window here, and they've kind of maybe exceeded expectations. And I think the thing that's blowing my mind, and I'll get your guys' thoughts on it, because I can't remember if he touched on it or where he was in his career now, but Boldy, I'm just absolutely blown away by his skill set. I just, every time I watch him play, even if he's not scoring or getting assists, he does a few little things. I think even last night he got a shot off. Maybe it was Tuesday or Monday, whenever they played it before. And I'm just like, man, that is just that. You cannot teach that kind of stuff, rare skill set, offensive instincts. And I've just been blown away. I don't know. What's your guys' impression been?
Well, he came out and was on fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still kind of waiting for him to hit the wall, and he's not. I mean,
I know
he's playing well every night, and it's almost like, boy, he didn't get points tonight, but man, he just knows the game, and he's sure of himself, and he is not afraid to make a play. He's not afraid of that. A lot of young guys will, hey, I don't want to get in trouble. I'll make the simple play, just kind of do my job. He's like, no, I'm going to take the ball by the horns, and and try to do it.
Well, and that's it. You get, a guy that age, sorry, Ted,
go ahead.
The consistency and maybe the fear factor of playing. He's 20 years old, which is mind-boggling to me. And he's being consistent, and he's fearless, essentially, in the way he plays the game. And that's the part that and I said that last night when they said his 21st birthday is coming up. And I was like, whoa, what did they say? Like, he's not even 21 yet? Like, that's crazy to me.
Well, and guys his size should not be able to handle a puck that well in small little spaces. Like, he is really good, like, getting himself out of it. Like, guys that size in corners have to muscle their way out of corners. He doesn't. He can finesse his way out of a corner. He's very creative for a guy his size. And kind of what I've noticed a lot, what's made this team so much more enjoyable to watch than every other Minnesota Wild team ever, is you have guys now that can actually get the puck on a zone entry and get into the zone and hold on to it without having to just, before it was, all right, defenseman steps up, we gotta dump the puck in. Whereas you've got guys like Zuccarello and Kaprizov that can peel off and curl and can make a weird dipsy doodle pass that'll leave someone open. And Boldy's got that element of his game, as well.
And to your point, that's when I watch both Bukestad and to another degree Greenway, it is almost like they're too big. Like they just have so much. It's hard. I mean, they're huge dudes, and Boldy has that ability, like not quite as big maybe, but still big. But yes, you're right. He kind of finesses his way around. Where that's just like, I don't even know if you could potentially even teach that, because there's times I see Bukestad, he looks so close to making a bunch of plays, and then night after night is kind of that same thing. He looks so close, and after a while you're like, well, maybe it's just kind of the way he plays. And so, and I mean, for a fourth liner, which his role is probably going to be in this team, fine. But Boldy is just, and we're not comparing Boldy and Bukestad, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination. But again, to your point, Tanner, the way he can get out of things is just amazing to me. With so much to grab onto as a defensive player, it's pretty incredible.
And we talked about this a little bit last time you were on, Nate, but like, I can only imagine what the NHL is going to look like 15, 20 years from now, because, I'm on Instagram and you see all these different hockey videos that are on there, and the way you see Kaprizov on his edges, like, that's now being taught to young kids.
Oh yeah.
Whereas that was not being taught. They are doing specific drills to work on edges and spinning and twirling that. So that element you see from Boldy and Kaprizov, like 15 years from now, all the players are going to be doing that. And I can't imagine what the skill level is going to be at some point down the line.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy where this game is headed. I mean, all sports evolve, obviously, but I do feel like hockey's kind of gone on this like rocket ship all of a sudden. And it's the growth of the game. It's, whether you're looking at the World Junior team or any college lineup or any USHL lineup. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but I think it was the Des Moines Buccaneers. And I was just looking through their lineup, and, there's 2 or 3 Minnesota kids where, in my era, there was 18 Minnesota kids. There's a Swedish kid, Slovakian kid, a couple kids from Illinois, a couple kids from Arizona. And I'm just like, the game is just that pool for like what I competed against was of all these great athletes in Arizona or California, where they never put on skates. Now they're all, a lot of them are playing hockey, and there's just that many more kids to choose from. And and the skill development stuff is like, night and day compared to our era when it was, go play in the pond. That's a fun thing that we, I guess, grasped onto a little bit here. And I'm not saying it's going to hurt your game, but it almost feels like this super skill specific, edge specific, insane skating with all these, stick. You still got to know how to play the game, but they bring this, the toolbox these kids bring now is just so much different.
All right, so back when we used to do Beyond the Pond, the three of us together, Saturday morning, 10 a.m. till noon, Micheletti is the only one who has survived and is still staying on the show.
Look at him, he's almost falling asleep. He can barely hold with us.
We used to do a segment called Quick Shifts, where you guys would each have 30 to 45 seconds to answer, just like a shift in a hockey game. You have 30 to 45 seconds to answer a question. Back then, I had, the Hartford Whalers music underneath, NHL Tonight on ESPN.
It was awesome.
We can't really do that anymore, though there is music through this website we are using right now, StreamYard. So I'm going to attempt for the first time to see how this sounds. Are you guys ready?
We are.
I am.
There we go. It's got a good sound to it. All right, let's do some quick shifts. We'll begin with you, Pat. Which round of the playoffs will the Wild make it to?
Second round.
You have 30 to 45 seconds, so why don't you explain?
I think they're going to end up playing Colorado in the second round, and I'm not so sure yet. I'm not. It's really tight. I think it would go 6 or 7 games, but I'm not quite there yet with the Wild getting over the hump. It's hard. It's really hard, but I have this Colorado feeling this year.
Nate?
Well, I guess my answer, this is a little boring start because I was kind of in the same mindset as Mick, and it's just. But that being said, I agree with everything Pat just laid out there, and I worry about the same thing. It's Calgary. However, the fun thing about this team is nothing would surprise me.
Right.
The conference filed. I mean, nothing would surprise me whatsoever. And I mean, there's years, every year I would have bet my life savings they weren't going to make it to the finals or the final round. It was a pretty easy, they might get through one round. Maybe the one year when they had the Blackhawks kind of on their heels for 2 periods of the first game until Dubnyk let in a bad goal, I was kind of believing. But so I'm kind of in the same thought. I think they're just missing that, that maybe it is the depth down the middle. I don't know. There's something there where I see these, and there's some really good teams where I think second round's probably most likely. However, it would not surprise me if they're playing for a Stanley Cup. I think this team does have that, and weird things happen. They're as good as some teams that have won the Stanley Cup in the past. That doesn't mean they're the odds-on favorite, but some of those Kings 8-seed teams that found a way through kind of tells you anything can happen. Those are good Kings teams that had bad regular seasons. Sorry, I got dogs barking here, but I second round's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah, it's almost if they get past the second round, you'd have to think, hey, they have as good a chance to anyone.
Correct
at that stage. But you also wonder, how many times do teams go from just not ever winning a playoff series to just winning the whole thing, right? Usually you kind of take incremental steps on the way there, and but we shall see. All right, they play today, so I apologize to anyone listening or watching the podcast a day or two from now. But Nate, we'll start with you. Which round of the NCAA tournaments will the Gophers make it to?
Ooh, I got it. Well, my son filled out a bracket last night, so I got that here, and he astutely picked Notre Dame over North Dakota, which
wow.
I don't know if that was I don't know what that was. I don't know if he somehow felt my hatred for North Dakota just seep into him, so he's already picking against them. I'm not Mr. Notre Dame either, but he does go to a Catholic school, so maybe it's starting to indoctrinate him into the system. But I like him against where does he have him going here? Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about UMass. Obviously, they've been good. They won it last year, right?
Yeah.
But I got him. I think Minnesota State's going to be the problem. Stick tap to Alex Micheletti. I think his team's kind of the team that's going to make it through that side. So I like him in the first two, and then I think Mankato is going to be a tough one for him.
Pat?
Yeah, I have Minnesota going to the Frozen Four. Do you want the whole prediction, or do you just want?
I think we're doing the whole prediction later. So
yeah,
that's a teaser for later in Quick Shifts.
Let's get into the Frozen Four first.
Yeah, Gophers get into the Frozen Four. All right, Pat. If the Wild can only keep either Matt Dumba or Kevin Fiala this offseason, which one should they keep?
Kevin Fiala. I just think, up front, it just gives them a 1-2 punch. And then with their third line, I think they're building on that. As much as I like Matt Dumba and in what he brings to the team and the leadership and all of that, I just think the cap hit is going to be too much for them to handle. I think Guerin is going to try to find a way to keep both of them. I don't know if that's possible. There's a thing called LTIR that they could maybe make a deal for and hide some money if that's the proper way you do it. But
Vegas does it.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't want Fiala to go.
Yeah, and we touched on this a little bit the last time we spoke, but I think I agree with Mick. I think the issue is the unknown is the locker room, and I don't know that. I don't know what kind of presence either one is. Obviously, Dumba's got a letter on his sweater, so that's important. I really like Dumba. I just feel like looking at who you can replace easier, it's going to be Dumba. I mean, Fiala does have some of that stuff you can't teach that's so coveted, especially in today's game, the high skill game it is. Dumba, I know we went through this, and a couple years in when he was making some mistakes, and I was like, "Oh, don't trade him now because there's too much upside," and it is that Brett Burns fear a little bit there. I think we can safely say now he's not going to be the next Brett Burns. Yeah. Therefore, I stick with Fiala, and we move on from Dumba, unfortunately, because I do like a lot of things he does.
The other X factor is how much money does Fiala want, right? Like if Fiala, if he wants to get paid an astronomical contract, that might change this discussion, and we're not privy to those conversations.
Exactly.
But if money is not if money is equal here, I'm definitely with you two that I'd rather keep Fiala. All right, Nate, who is the NHL's MVP this season?
Well, I've only got. I mean, it obviously always depends where it all finishes up, and I do like the kind of the best player on the best team. So then you maybe go down to Florida, but Austin Matthews, what he does in that city. And he's got some pieces around him, but I just think the way he can score goals in an absolute pressure cooker environment is really impressive. So, and I didn't do the research I wanted on this, but I was able to kind of glance at it. And man, it's almost been a decade since Ovechkin or Crosby won an MVP, which is mind-boggling to me. I think it was 14. I think either Crosby or Ovechkin won the last one. But so it's kind of that new wave. I can make a case for Cale Makar. I'm gone that far with him where he's kind of gone from rookie sensation to maybe the best player in the league in my mind and one of the best teams. The Rangers goaltender, I feel like he kind of keeps him hanging around. But I'd probably go Austin Matthews on this. Not that it's a stretch to take, the top guy. And McDavid's always in a conversation too, because I don't think he has. Obviously, Draisaitl is a supporting cast to a degree, but not quite what Matthews has. But I'd probably say Austin Matthews at this point.
Go ahead, Pat.
I have a 1 and 1A, and this one will blow you away, but I have my reasons. I think Nazem Kadri is right up
there.
Had
a good year.
I mean, he's not on the top line. Yes, he's on the power play and so much, but he gives that team that extra guy, and he's got close to 80 points now. And I just think he's been a godsend for Colorado. Gives him a little grit. He's not afraid. He's a point producer, and he's a really skilled player that's kind of always been in the shadow, and he still is in the shadow. So I think what he's done for Colorado has really elevated their team. My 1A, and I'll go with Nate there, is the Rangers are a really good team, but they are that good because of their goaltender. I mean, you put Shesterkin on a couple other teams that might be on the brink of winning a cup, and he's the X factor. I mean, he has been that good for the Rangers. Gives them a chance to win every night.
All right, Pat, as you know, there are 4 universities within the state of Minnesota that are in the NCAA tournament. 2 of them have already advanced, UMD and Minnesota State Mankato. Overall, though, which Minnesota university will have the most success in the NCAA tournament?
Well, I'm going to go with Minnesota State. I think I watched their game yesterday, and I've seen them a lot this year. They're a heavy team. They play within their system. They have a good goaltender, but the X factor for them is that they've got some guys who can score, which in the past may have held them back a little bit. They have legit guys who can score. Napravnik, Sandelin, and the most important guy, Nathan Smith, who was held off the board yesterday. Smith will probably play in the NHL for Arizona. His rights were traded next season. He's a really, really talented player. So I think that alone kind of gives them the edge, I think.
Yeah, I have that same vibe of Minnesota State, and maybe how can you go against Duluth regardless? I mean, they built a dynasty right in front of our eyes, kind of. And I mean, I'm just saying, I like Minnesota State team better this year, but they find ways to win always in this situation.
Yep.
But I just feel like, kind of to your NHL point, Tenna, where they make these jumps, and it's just like Minnesota State's been hanging around so much recently. It just kind of feels like this has to be their year for some reason. And maybe I'm just counting my team, the Gophers. I don't know. It's a one and done, so you never know. But I'm with Mick too. I think Minnesota State's this is gonna be their year to make it to the final game.
Yeah, to your point, Minnesota Duluth was a week before the NCAA tournament was on the bubble of not even making the thing, and they won their way in through the NCHC tournament. They now have 3 straight shutouts. And Pat, we've talked about their offensive struggles this year, that they're not as dynamic offensively as they have been in the past. Yet they're such shut down defensively that they get in any of these games, they can win 1-0, 2-1 type games.
Yeah, and quite frankly, they won 3-0 with an empty net goal. The 2 goals that they got yesterday were kind of gifted, at least the second one for sure. First one went off a defender and beat the goaltender. But that being said, Michigan Tech thoroughly outplayed them yesterday, thoroughly. And Ryan Fanti has been the hero for them. And that's what you need. And so doesn't matter how you win, as long as you win. And I think they survived yesterday's game, in my opinion.
All right, next question in quick shifts, and was inspired after the boys AA state championship game to ask this question. Nate, what's the best high school hockey game you've ever seen?
And is this in person, or does it just have to be anything you've ever watched?
Television, in person, whatever you want.
Okay, well, and especially hockey, I do think it's an in-person thing. So I went back to, and again, I meant to make sure my memory was correct on this, but I was at the 89 championship, Jefferson, John Marshall. John Marshall had Zamolik and Eric Means. And I believe it was, I think his name was Chris Tucker for Jefferson.
Yeah.
Had the hat trick with the OT winner 4-3. And I was with a family friend, and we had great seats. So I was at 89, 12 years old. I'm in the height of my hockey fandom, and being able to go to that game, we weren't exactly a family that went every year or had the opportunity to ever go. But that game just stuck out as just unbelievable. And the atmosphere is old, Clearboard Civic Center. So the nostalgia is there for that too. I know what your answer is going to be, Tenna, which is right in my wheelhouse of my generation. But that's the one that sticks out to me. And obviously Saturday night's game, or a couple Saturdays ago now, was terrific. And you got to always mention the East Apple Valley game. But I didn't see that whole game. I was playing junior, so I caught a few of the overtimes. But at Jefferson, John Marshall sticks out to me as just an unbelievable hockey game, and just how intense and into the game everyone was. And I was old enough to understand that not everyone was a Jefferson or John Marshall fan. And that atmosphere was just incredible. And I hope my memory's somewhat right on that, because that's how I remember it anyways. I know Jefferson won, but that's what I remember. And then, then I got to high school and was beat. Jefferson won all 3 state titles. So I guess that's what you get.
All right, I'm going to bring you way back to the Met Center. I am. And I'm going to pay homage to my brother Joe in the 1973 state title, which was won by Hibbing. They beat Alexander Ramsey. I think the final was 6-3.
Such a homer pick.
And
defunct school too. They beat.
And Hibbing had scored 3 goals in 23 seconds. 2 of them by my brother Joe. 1 by George Perpich. His father was the coach. And but that was a highlight for me, because that was my first state tournament that I attended. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And so.
And I'd love to try to make fun of you, but how can't that be your top game? I mean, that has to be amazing to see that as a kid, and your brother's out there delivering. I mean, that's pretty cool.
That was, I think, my first time down in in the Twin Cities. You know, I was 10 years old, whatever. And so that was a lot of fun.
Duluth East, Apple Valley, 1996 is the greatest sporting event I've ever attended. And ever in person. That's the best sporting event I've ever been to. It was fantastic. I'm guessing, Nate, you were alluding to Elk River versus Moorhead, 1994.
Yep.
Section final. I think it was 4 overtimes. My older brother played in that game. They lost. It was 2 of the 3 best teams in the state. The other was Bloomington Jefferson. So it was almost like a state championship game in sections. But the amount of Division I athletes that were on the ice at that time, Matt Cullen, Kraft from Moorhead. It was
Paul Martin.
Before Martin, but Dan Heino would have been on that Elk River team.
Dan Heino played in the pros, probably had the best professional career. On that Elk River team, he was probably like 5th best player.
Yeah,
really?
I mean, he was on their
second line.
He
was on their second line. Yeah. Huh. So it was Elk River that year, because my brothers on the team had lost 1 game all season.
Where was that game played?
It was at St. Cloud State.
St. Cloud.
Oh, wow.
I did not get to see it in person because I had my own hockey tournament in the Twin Cities that weekend. But I saw the game. My brother played it many times on VHS, so I saw it over and over and over again.
Wow.
Osseo and Matt Jeffers on Thursday, and my dad actually went to that game, and I just couldn't watch hockey at that point. But I remember him coming back and telling me all about it. I was a 94 grad, so I grew up with Red Simon, Woody Glines, and all those Elk River guys were really good friends of mine, and I knew the Moorhead guys too. So it was one that I wanted to watch, but I wasn't emotionally ready. And then my dad came back and told me about it. I'm like, I probably should have went and gone and watched that game.
I'll see if I can find the VHS for you, Nate.
Perfect.
All right, we got a couple more left in quick shifts. Pat, how many NHL players are better than Kirill Kaprizov?
I have him in my top 5, so I'm going to say 5.
Well, if he's in your top 5, that would mean 4.
He would be 6, so 5.
Okay.
5 are he's a top 10 player. So, you know,
who's better?
Let's go with 5.
Who would you take over him?
Well, I'm going to eliminate the D and just put the forwards. Okay, so you've got, you still have Crosby, you have Draisaitl, you have McDavid, you have Panarin,
McKinnon,
and I'm missing one.
McKinnon.
Austin Matthews.
No, Nathan McKinnon.
Yeah. So I'm about there. I mean, it gets tricky when you start mixing in goaltenders, and maybe that's a better way to look at it, because again, Cale Makar I'd have to consider over him. Maybe Hedman still, but you're right. Maybe looking at forwards, I'm about the same as you. I mean, he's in that conversation, and it's hard. Like, are we just talking today? Who's going to help you win a game more between Ovechkin, Crosby, or Kaprizov? Long term, obviously, he's at the beginning of his career, and they're winding down. But same guys. I mean, he's in that conversation, which is, pretty crazy when you think about the hype and how many times we've had like these guys that, we thought were going to be, whether it's Granlund or whomever that we thought were going to be in that conversation, and they never really quite pan out. But he's right there. I mean, I think McDavid and Matthews, those guys are, a little step up there, but he's not that far off, and he's only in his second year, so he's still figuring it out. So we'll kind of see where it goes. But
and we're forgetting Barkov, Huberdeau.
Yep. Huberdeau too is the guy I was thinking for MVP. Kucherov.
Aho from I mean,
Carolina.
The league is, the league is loaded, right? So you could almost put them all together.
So it sounds like you don't think he's a top 5 player, Pat. Seems like you're now backtracking.
Mick has that appreciation for him.
Yeah, I just, you know what? I'll put him with them, because I don't know if you could take one over the other.
Yeah, and that's where I got too. When I saw that question, I was like, I don't know, top 30, and then I started narrowing it down. I was like, oh, he's further up there than I thought. But you're right; it's hard on any given night. There's a lot out there. Even Winnipeg, now in Columbus guy, when he gets going, Liney. Yeah, like when he's engaged, he's
Kaprizov's better than Liney.
I agree overall, and he's more consistent, which is really the key to it, probably.
All right, 2 more questions. Nate, we'll begin with you. Which current Gopher will have the best NHL career?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. And here's my problem. Gabe, I think, he'll probably be there pretty soon, potentially. I don't know if he'll be a high-end guy. Line. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he'll be I don't know if he'll be a top line or put up big points, but I think he could have a long career. the defenseman, and his name
Brock Faber.
Brock Faber.
Yeah, pretty impressive. I just don't know how. I mean, he's already playing at a pretty crazy level, and so I like his chances as well. The freshman kid. Now, God, listen to me. I feel like I'm 95 years old. The freshman kid. Nice. I like his game a lot too. So it's so hard. And again, I kind of been the theme of the show. There's so many guys and so much talent coming. It's hard for me to say this guy's a can't miss guy. You know, Eric Hall as a freshman, I was like, well, this guy's not going to be able to play. He might not even be in the lineup. And by, a few years later, he was taking games over, and he's still in the NHL to this day. So I'm not great. That's why I'm not a scout. I'm hard at projecting where guys are going, but there's a lot of talent around. So it's hard for me. And, then you get the system, what team they're with and how many prospects they have and what opportunity they're going to get. And so it's hard for me to project, but I'm somewhere in that bubble. They have guys that are definitely going to have nice careers. I can say that much.
Yeah, I'm going Brock Faber. I think he'll play in the playoffs as soon as the Gophers season is completed. He's with the LA Kings. I kind of look at him a lot like a Drew Doughty type. Wow. He's a better skater than Doughty. I just think he's an absolute stud and a no-brainer to play. I think he'll play the longest of any of the guys,
right.
if longevity has something to do with it.
All right, final question, because you guys are taking longer shifts than you're supposed to be taking.
Okay.
Pat, who will win the Stanley Cup?
I'm sticking with my initial thought from the beginning of the year. I'm going to go with the Florida Panthers. I think they're the most skilled. I think Bobrovsky is starting to play better, and they have a second backup in Knight who come in if needed and is ready. So I just think they're too skilled and they'll win the cup.
Hard to argue with that, and it's a weird thing because I love Claude Giroux as a player. I've always liked him. I've liked the style he's played, and I just this is weird because if they wouldn't have acquired him, I'd been more apt to say Florida. I just think there's some weird chemistry mix-up that maybe I'm overweighing that, because I'm not saying like, oh God, who'd want Claude Giroux on their team? I'd take him every second, even at this age. But so that's my only negative on them. Tampa Bay, it just seems like they've played too much hockey the last few years. Like, you just can't keep doing it. So I'm completely biased because of what I witnessed here. I'm going with the Calgary Flames.
Ooh.
Wow, I like it. You can still get them at 9-1, Nate, if you want to place a wager on them. And we lost Nate.
Ooh. Oh, all right.
I'll drop him for a second. I like the Florida Panthers. I think they're the best team I've seen in the league all year. West, I think it's going to come down to Colorado, Calgary, or the Wild.
Yeah.
I think the Wild are in the top three. I think they have as good a chance as anyone. So, all right, Nate, before we go, we've held you a lot longer than I had told you.
And we appreciate it.
Are you guys able to come up with a stick tap to finish off the podcast
yes.
at all? Pat, you can do it? All right, I don't have any music to play behind you. No dramatic music.
My stick tap is to Lindenwood College. They announced yesterday that they are going Division I.
Nice.
And for people who do not know where Lindenwood is, it is a suburb of St. Louis. So another team in the Midwest, and
there should be a university there.
North Dakota Fighting Sioux. Rick Zombo is their head coach, and they've taken it slowly, but have gotten there. So happy to have them in Division I.
Nate, do you have a stick tap?
Yeah, I do. It's kind of a sellout move, but we'll get there. You just educated me, Mick, because I saw that headline and I was like, where is that college?
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny about that is, now that I'm starting to get immersed into the youth hockey world, I'm hearing more and more about these teams out of St. Louis that are these, more of the, it's still kind of more clubby. I don't know what they call them, but they come into tournaments here and just dominate. And apparently a lot of those guys from the Al McGinnises, and don't quote me on the exact prongers, a lot of those guys have hung around there and have really, the ex-NHL Blues end up hanging out there, and they've really built up the program and have kind of turned them into a little bit of a powerhouse. That's pretty cool now that they have a Division I program right there to possibly have a little bit of a feeder system built in too. And so Good one. And my stick tap's a sellout, but it's to you guys because you reach out and I'm like, when am I going to do this? I got this going on. I got that going on. I'm not going to be able to see the game Thursday because spring hockey starts because it's, almost April. And I'm like, oh boy. And then we get together and we chat away. I learned something from the both of you. I get to get your takes on where we are and you catch me all up. And now I'm excited about the NHL playoffs, the college playoffs. And so thank you guys for having me. It's always a joy. And I can't believe it's been 45 minutes already.
Yeah.
Appreciate having you on, and we'll definitely have you on again. My stick tap is going to go to a kid named Owen Lipinski. He's 13 years old. I don't know if you guys saw the story on Care 11. You can go to care11.com.
Oh,
it's a couple weeks old, but he lives in like St. Michael or Otsego or somewhere up in the northwest suburbs. And he has a medical condition. He just loves hockey, super passionate about hockey. He has a medical condition that prevents him from actually playing regular hockey. So what he did is he organized his own annual tournament that he plays on a pond by his yard. And he does everything from the organization. He goes to all the neighbors and asks them if they could play. He designed logos, the brackets, the team. He made up the team names. He fundraised via raffle tickets to come up with jerseys to pay for it. He goes and recruits adults to do the scorekeeping and the announcing, and
awesome.
Loved it. And I'm trying to find a way to track this kid down because I would love to donate to his cause and donate to his tournament.
I would too.
So I'll definitely find that information and maybe throw out one of those GoFundMe's or something out there.
I told Tennis set us up with his super awesome stick tap. Like, hey guys, you want to do a stick tap on the fly? Because he had the best one. You can't beat that. I mean, that was great.
Just like the old days, make myself look the best.
Thrown under the bus again.
I'm sorry,
but no, that's great, Tennis. That's a great story.
From now on,
Nate.
From now on, when you're on, plan a stick tap because we're going to have you on again.
All right.
Excellent. Anytime you need me.
All right. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Nate.
you guys.
Take care, bud.
Take care. See you guys.
All right, Nate Miller, former Golden Gopher, former Beyond the Pond co-host, former actor in the movie Miracle. Pat, we'll talk to you after Saturday night's game for the Wild Fan Line.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Brandon.
All right, before we let you go, just want to let you know that sodastick.com is your place for all the original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. If you haven't seen this stuff yet, you got to check it out. All their apparel screen printed right here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You're going to love it. We're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order, so use the code KFAN for 15% off. Use the code KFAN for 15% off at sodastick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. Thank you so much to Nate Miller for joining. Thank you for watching or listening. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod.